I believe the year was 2008. It was the summer of 2008. Maybe it was the summer of 2007. I hope there's a record of this somewhere. To verify when exactly it would have happened. The summer of 2008, I had graduated officially. The summer of 2007, I was supposed to graduate officially from college, but a series of economic fiascos and my parents losing their house and literally moving into an extended stay motel for 6 months prior to finding an apartment they could rent after the decline of my father's health and the loss of their home in the mortgage crisis and the loss of my father's business, which delayed my ability to maintain my normal academic functioning. And I basically failed all my academic classes and made sure I didn't miss any rehearsals or shows that I was already cast in. So the summer of I think it was 2007, but there's got to be some government record somewhere that verifies when exactly this was. I was summoned for jury duty. And I showed up to the courthouse in Brooklyn by the Court Street ACE stop, subway stop, and I was very broke and very hungry and very worried about my economic circumstances at the time. The summer of 2007 was spent working at Starbucks and then taking the bus back home to Philly on the weekends to buy my parents groceries. We didn't know anything about help or government benefits, and therefore we went through a lot of arguably unnecessary turmoil. In addition to a series of faulty beliefs that are not really part of the narrative of this particular story. But that is how I spent my summer in 2007. I don't, again, if it was summer of 2008, I would have been, also broke and hungry because I had been employed by a coffee shop and then a temp agency, but then in 2008, work really dried up. And there was a period of time where I was, again, searching feverishly for any kind of employment in the middle of a recession without any parental help in New York City by myself, where I had no family. So summer of that year, I was called to jury duty, and I showed up. I was told, by friends or acquaintances, like, oh, jury duty, just act like a weirdo and they won't sign you up. And I was like, well, jury duty sounds kind of fun. And I was also like, oh wow, they pay you $40 a day. That's, at the time, like, $40 a day would have covered my rent. Like, for a month, I was paying like $400 for a very small room with a window that looked into the kitchen of a 5-bedroom, very cheaply constructed apartment that was built for the purpose of cheap construction, high occupancy, in the middle of Bed-Stuy, which was not developed at that point. So I was like, and I'm sure that mentality would automatically make me someone that they probably didn't want to sign up for jury duty. So I showed up, sweaty and eager, dressed in jeans and like a tank top in the middle of summer with like a greasy backpack and some battered copy of a script I was probably memorizing. And I was called up to the judge, or the person determining who was going to be on the jury. And I was like, hi. And they're like, why? Do you have any... They very quickly determined that they weren't going to put me on the jury. And then I was like, I was like, when do I get my $40 check for showing up today? And they were like, you'll get it in the next 30 days or so in the mail. And I was like, darn it. I was hoping for a little sooner. And then I left the courthouse. And I had sat there all day waiting to get called. And I probably had no money to buy myself food. They probably like gave us sandwiches at some point. I was very thirsty and very faint and very hot. And I was making my way from the subway, from the courthouse to the train. And I walked down the stairs to the subway station. And I was hot, thirsty, hungry, generally, very optimistic, but, a little weary from the struggles to which I had been subjected, though highly optimistic and galvanized in my, youth and indoctrination. And I had an unlimited Metro card, I always had an unlimited Metro card. My budget consisted of my rent and my unlimited Metro card and like my phone, my phone bill and my like very minimal grocery budget that was lentil and egg based, and like what so like I had my unlimited Metro card, which was like my all important, most prized possession. Um, and But because it was so hot and I was just like completely just like thirsty and dehydrated and like still demoralized by like not having found a job yet, I wasn't thinking. And like, though I didn't know it at the time, a trap that had been set for me, the emergency exit of the subway was cracked open, and I just, because it was an opening into the subway, I just went in without thinking about it. I wasn't trying to steal fare. I had no motive to do so. I had my unlimited Metro card, and I never thought about stealing fare. I didn't think about doing it. It wasn't a big discussion at the time that I was aware of, like a big point of people talking about, the iniquities of subway fare and who has to steal subway fare and who doesn't. But I wasn't trying to steal subway fare. I didn't have a motive. I had my unlimited Metro card just like with me, but just out of sheer like dehydration and absent-mindedness, I was like, an opening, and I just went through it. It was not 2 steps through that opening that a woman comes up to me and she's like, how did you get in here? And I was like, what? She's like, give me your ID. Give me your ID. And I'm like, what? I thought she was a crazy lady. I thought she was trying to like trick me into taking out my wallet. She didn't have on any clothes that signified she was an MTA employee of any kind, an authority figure of any kind, an official of any kind. She just walked up to me out of nowhere. And I thought she was trying to just, I don't know, hustle me or get money for me in some way. And she's like, give me your ID. She's like, how'd you get in here? I was like, I just walked through that door. She's like, give me your ID. It was like, and I thought, and she's like, she didn't even tell me why she was asking me. I just thought she was someone, like a random stranger trying to get me to take out my wallet or trick me or something. She's like, wait right here. And then 2 police officers or like MTA police come up to me and they're like, sorry. I'm like, wait, what? And she's like, come with me. She's like, come with me. And like, I was like, wait, what? And we go to this office that's somewhere in the subway tunnel behind a door. And then she's talking in a different language that I don't understand. She switched languages. So now she's talking, but I don't understand what she's saying. She's talking to the guy behind the desk. And he's like, we have to give you like a $40 ticket for fare evasion or something. I don't know if he used fare evasion, but like stealing fare. And I was like, no, I didn't even, I was like, I have an unlimited card. I can walk you to the turnstile and show you, swipe it, I had no motive. It was because the door was cracked open. She's like, no, I don't have time for that. Like, it's 5 o'clock. I have to go home now. Like, my shift is over or something. And so she didn't let me, like, give me the opportunity to show her, like, I have an unlimited card. I had literally no motive to go through that door. She's like, well, even though you didn't have a motive, you still went through the door. And, like, I was only 2 steps through it. Then she came up and started interacting with me and said, come with me. So I don't know, you know what I mean? Like, at that point, she may have, but the point is, I just came from jury duty. I had been promised a $40 check. Then I went through the subway, and it was like the government took that $40 right back from me. And I, at the time, so anyway, so I at the time was like, oh my God, well, what a crazy situation. Oh man, that's just, well, ain't that something? Like, right, I was like, basically all of the things that would happen to me, I filtered through, you know, my experience as material for my art. And I also filtered it through my indoctrination that things that happened to me were like because of the order of the universe. It would not have occurred to me that I was the target of a multi-interest black ops, and that cop, that under, you know, plain clothes MTA cop, was literally coordinating with the fact that I was on jury duty, and that they were gonna basically, you know, play cat and mouse with me and torture me and do that to create a sense of learned helplessness in me, to create a sense of economic futility in me, maybe to see if they could torture me enough to see if they could get me to descend into a life of criminality. I don't know, right? See if they could get me to lash out, to find excuses to penalize me, etc., etc., etc. But at the time, I just thought this was, you know, the universe in its mysterious ways. You know, there is, you know, it's one of the, it's an incident that is also in my currently being queried book surrounding the Joseph Brooks rape trials, and getting hired by Joseph Brooks as his assistant just before he becomes a Supreme Court rape trial suspect, and basically having to work there for 18 months while my parents' economic decline was bearing down on us, and having to basically constantly fend off his grooming efforts and like subvert his attempt to like hit on girls my age who were like 50 years younger than him, and stuff like that. So like, even when I was writing this whole book, I still did not at all consider that, you know, I've actually been the target of a multi-interest black ops, like even while I was at Tisch School of the Arts, that was designed to, you know, do things like make sure I didn't graduate, you know, with an agent, and time certain things and events and shows I was in and projects I was involved in and people that I met in a way that would sabotage me or try to undermine my internal narrative or sense of self. You know, I've published satire about Scientology. They are known and documented and internally structured to systematically harass and discredit and covertly and relentlessly attack anybody who is considered a liability or a defector or a critic in any significant and sometimes insignificant way. However, at the time of this happening to me, I had defected from the church, but I actually had no sense of opposition towards them at all. I actually just thought it was my own weaknesses that had led me to basically become a lapsed member of the Church of Scientology, and I wanted to eventually redeem myself and contribute to them. I just thought I needed to go out in the world and get a job and have more money, and then I could go back and be a good church member. I don't know if because I'd been at Tisch School of the Arts, because I was a pretty voracious drama student. I did over like 40 projects, when you combine every little student film and excerpt and show I was in, and I was a very promising student. I was somebody who, could have gotten an agent and just, put my nose to the grindstone and auditioned and auditioned and auditioned and done whatever, an agent would have told me to do to, get hired somehow. And I don't know if it was totally the church incentivizing colleagues or acquaintances or professors to sabotage me through a series of scenarios that I did not process at the time as being anything but, a message from the universe. But I now realize were like a very staged series of multi-interest black ops tactics. I don't know if it was all just the Church of Scientology or, someone very powerful allied with the Church of Scientology incentivizing people to do that, or if there was a dual, like I was just kind of a casualty in a long-standing war between the FBI and Scientology, and the FBI was trying to basically like mess with me so that the church would divest any support from me, so that I would not risk endorsing Scientology and becoming like successful in the arts. What's her name? Zoe Feynman, who's on SNL. I didn't know anything about this at the time. I was not a celebrity chaser or a celebrity watcher. I was not a climber. I just wanted to be an artist and realize my artistic potential. But I think she was maybe a couple years below me in the Stella Adler studio at Tisch. And she was maybe like a second or third generation Scientologist. It would have been hard for the FBI to like mess with her in any way. I had parents who had been briefly involved. My mom never liked it. My dad got involved for a few years, and I was initially not into it. And then I got into it because it helped me organize my academic and artistic goals as like a middle and high schooler in a way that I was otherwise, by I think the class dynamics of my private schooling, I was not really encouraged to be ambitious. And then I found a means by which to facilitate my goals, like through the Scientology planning and study technology. Then when my dad was increasingly disillusioned with Scientology because of their efforts to recruit me for the Sea Org, I rebelled against my father by getting more into Scientology. and almost signing up for the Sea Org, and having like a huge fight with my parents at the end of high school when they would not let me. I was like I was a minor, so I couldn't, and I had just a huge, massive falling out with my parents, and it was a huge sore spot. Which is material for, another time. So when I was in college, I don't think the church would have been able to mess with me in certain ways in which I now realize people were messing with me. And I think there were people within the school who were not necessarily working on Scientology's behalf. They could have been working on the FBI's behalf to evaluate, oh my God, if she gets a film and TV career, is she going to be out there trying to recruit people for Scientology? But I would say the church also had me on their list as a liability pretty early on, because when I served one summer between sophomore and junior year as kind of like an unpunctual, reluctant staff member, there was one time where they were like, okay, this is how you body route. This is how, like, if somebody is getting this process and you need to, like, grab their arm and put them back in the chair, like, this is how you do it. I'm like, I'm not touching anyone. I was like, I'm not going to grab someone's arm. If they try to leave the church, I'm not going to stop them physically at all. I was like, I am not doing that. And I was like, I'm just not going to do that. I was like, I'm never touching someone. I'm not going to grab someone's arm and put them back in the chair if they try to leave. Like, I will never do that. I'm not doing that. And they were like, I didn't think at the time that would have been a huge red flag to them. But now I'm thinking that probably was one of many moments that I didn't even think about, where they're probably like, ooh, this person's suppressive. This person is a WOG, which is a Scientology term to refer to, like, people who just are stuck in the mainstream materialist society that's, like, so weighed down by conforming to that kind of middle of the road existence that they are pretty much incapable of rising to the level of ethics required to keep Scientology working, enforce standard tech. And so I probably immediately they probably were like, this person is a degraded being and she can't be in our inner church. Operations. Like, she can't even, physically stop someone from leaving the church. If the moment were to call for it, she's a liability. I'm sure that's what they were thinking. And then I don't know if it was if all these fiascos over the years were simply the church and they're just that deeply embedded at every level, and just they're, like the movie It Follows, like it's that. Or if it was the FBI trying to influence me to then behave in ways that the church would then view as a liability, and kind of using me like as almost unwitting bait to maybe study the church's fair game tactics, basically sacrifice me in their war between, the longstanding war between Scientology and intelligence agencies. So yeah, I don't know. So that's why I say multi-interest black ops. And then my books surrounding the Joseph Brooks rape trials, like the Brooks family is a very powerful family with connections in the entertainment industry and numerous industries, and the Cargman family as well was on multiple occasions stalking me in this multi-interest black ops in ways that I did not view as stalking at the time, but now I realize it is not the universe it making me run into people at key moments. It's, I'm being stalked by rich people who can pay for this and have time to do this. So yeah, multi-interest black ops. There are multiple interests targeting me in a black ops. And one interest that they share, now that I'm able to recognize this, is they all will look bad if I'm not discredited, because, all these interests are doing things that are, not legal and certainly frowned upon by, surveilling me and then trying to manipulate me and silence, my ability to publish a book and be a writer and have a career as an artist. So yeah. And, do things like hire cops and time my jury duty to trick me into walking into a emergency exit in the subway so that they can play mental games with me and try to shape my vision of how the universe is intending to punish me and make it so I can't even hold on to a $40 jury duty check. Yeah, I think that was the purpose of that particular instance in the subway that day, was to shape a sort of self-perception that I am incapable of even having a $40 check stick to me. I am such a degraded being that the minute I even have a $40 check coming to me from jury duty, I lose it by wandering through a subway entrance that was open. I really think that was the goal of that particular fiasco. I think that was a staged fiasco. So if someone whose job it is to investigate this kind of corruption could go back in the records, find out what was that summer that I had jury duty. I think it was it could have, I don't remember if it was 2007 or 2008. But I think it was 2008, I'm not sure. But just find who those subway cops were, who that woman was who came up to me, and were these people coordinated and by whom? Because this is not the only instance of such coincidence that has happened to me over the years. In fact, I would say so many instances of coincidences of this nature have happened to me over the years, all of them ending in some kind of misfortune or fiasco, or sense that the universe is punishing me or intentionally messing with me. That it has to be coordinated. It's got to be coordinated, and I'm wondering, is it just Scientology? Is it New York City? Is so embedded with it in particular, or what? But yeah, it's just crazy how stuff like that happens, and whoever engaged with that, I've heard that the FBI, when it targets people that they're basically trying to see if they can get them to freak out, so they can arrest them or something, they sometimes will capitalize on their religious beliefs. So like if somebody is fasting, they'll target that person when they're like extra hungry because of their fasting, so that they're more like emotionally vulnerable. So yeah, somebody was definitely staging that scenario so that I would feel like just incapable of postulating money and success. And many scenarios happened to me just like that over the years, and they were all specifically shaped to influence me from the lens of my indoctrination or belief system at the time. So, I mean, a lot of people have been involved or been incentivized in this multi-interest black ops over the years. Some in small ways, some in large ways. Some of these people are bigger names in the entertainment industry, and some may have a real motive to falsely discredit me because, they know maybe they're going to be in deep shit if they get outed for participating in this. Some people may have been minimally or unwittingly participating on a need-to-know basis and on very short term, So anyway, a lot of these people are going to get off on plausible deniability. I've been submitting so many of these scenarios, like on the online FBI tips forum, and I'm sure they have a big, like 300-page file from me marked, insane, because I've submitted these tips in varying stages of distress, and I'm sure typos, and sometimes I've had to submit the tips really quickly, so they probably think I'm just a nutcase, and I'm sure they have a lot of those. But I've had so many scenarios, and I've been researching other instances of the church doing this to people over the years, along with the FBI doing their own version of it to people over the years. But I would say the church is more totalitarian than the FBI for sure. And my ability to articulate that this is happening shows that I've gone past the crucible of, having to prove that I'm not a crazy person, not to stigmatize, but I'm a little bit desensitized, so forgive me for just using the word crazy person. I'm past the crucible of needing to confirm that I'm not experiencing delusions of grandeur or persecutory delusions in my claims that I'm being targeted by a multi-interest black ops. I'm writing a book about. I've written a book that I'm querying about a very high-profile rape suspect. Rape litigation, like, it's routine for rape defense lawyers to try to dig up dirt on anybody trying to discredit their client. And I was in no way involved in the lawsuit, but I'm writing a book about a high-profile rape suspect who has powerful families connected to them, and like nobody wants to be in that book. Probably because either they want to write the book themselves, or they just don't want me being the person to control the narrative in any way, if they're going to be attached to scandal in any way that doesn't sanctify them. I don't know, but at this point, I'm an inconvenience to many different people because of my writing, and they probably view me as undeserving or parasitic in some way for writing the book. I'm not sure. But I mean, none of that's true. I'm just following the natural progression of what I think they themselves would argue in their own case. Which is that, I don't deserve to write this book because I'm not part of their powerful, circle of families, and I don't know. But, those people became part of powerful circles of families by taking career risks and, doing innovative things. And my book falls into that category as well. Yeah. So anyway, this bizarre circumstance in the subway tunnel, would be a once in a lifetime coincidence if it was the only such fiasco that had happened to me. But my life seems to be a series of fiascos as novel as this one that I've described today. And I can't believe that only in the past few years did I start to say to myself, oh, this is not the universe's plan for me. This is a multi-interest black ops that's been conducted not by some spiritual force, but by people who are getting paid to target me with a multi-interest black ops. So, I can't help how much or how little you might like me based on impression or pre-existing bias or any number of factors. But the fact is, somebody can go back and find out when I had jury duty, who those people were who busted me in the subway, where they are now. They can go back and look at the subway card swipes that day, because after I got my ticket for fare evasion, I went and swiped my card in the turnstile so the recording of that swipe would be there. I don't know if they can link that card to my personal ownership, because I probably bought it with cash, but for what it's worth, when I eventually was summoned to show up in court, because I think I contested the fine, by that time I had been hired to work for Joseph Brooks, and I wrote and I said, well, it would probably cost me more money to take work off and come and argue this fine, so I have to pay it. But I had written like a long letter to the courts explaining what had happened and how everything had taken place, and that the door had just been open and I had my unlimited card and I had no motive to steal fare. I just had wandered in absentmindedly. But the point is, this whole scenario that took place in the subway that day was totally staged. It's crazy. And many, many things just like that have happened to me that are just totally staged. Complete game of cat and mouse set up to entrap me or mess with me in some way and shape my perception of the universe as being like pitted against me. And that is crazy. And I would like to know every single person who was involved in that scenario that day and where they are now and what other strange black ops they've participated in. And that is really just the beginning of a vast catalog of things that I'm going to have to report to, like, anyone who's able to investigate that kind of stuff. I think I don't know if the police would take a report of this incident. They technically, I think they need it to be something where you are physically harmed or experience financial loss or vandalism in some way. Like, I tried to report another incident where this weird man posing as a literary agent, like, tried to, like, get me to give him money and also, like, echoed contents of a private email I had sent to a completely different agent. And I tried reporting it to the police, and they thought it was really weird that he was echoing, like, a private email I had sent to someone completely different. But they said they couldn't actually file a report because I hadn't experienced any financial loss or physical harm of any kind. And I was like, oh, well, maybe I should have, like, let him con me so I could have reported it, but I unfortunately don't have the resources to do that. Like, I'm not a real undercover cop, so I can't go around letting people con me out of money that I don't have just so I can report it. So that's, you don't want to develop a mentality where you are letting yourself get in harm's way so that you can report it to cops, because that could go horribly wrong. And you're not a real undercover cop, so don't do that. And yeah, so there you go. I am the target of a multi-interest black ops, and I just took 47 minutes and counting to explain to you perfectly literary scenario that took place years ago that I just at the time was like, wow, this is great material for my book. And it is, but it's also not just coincidence. It is a multi-interest black ops that was staged by professionals and not necessarily to my benefit. And not necessarily because they want me to write a successful book, because I'm pretty sure that book is getting blackballed as we speak. So yeah, for what it's worth, not to set off an epidemic of paranoia and, like, we need that of all things. But I mean, maybe other people who are writing books about powerful families or totalitarian churches have experienced similar coincidences that maybe were staged by, like, professionals who work for, like, Black Cube or Kroll, thanks to the journalism of Ronan Farrow, who wrote about the just crazy stuff that operatives hired by Harvey Weinstein did to numerous people. But I think the Church of Scientology might be able to do crazier stuff. Because I think their investment is much more intense. Because they can do their own personal volunteers who are just way more invested because their incentive is not purely monetary, it's spiritual. And Lord knows that's the highest pay that there is. Well, anyway, I'm just out here, hoping to revive my career from the utter blackballing that has taken place over the years. I kind of feel like the acting studio that I went to at Tisch, I think I was possibly lured into that acting studio by an operative who may have been an FBI person, because that particular studio had a much more confessional style of first and second year technique, which means that I would have been in front of the class talking out scenarios about my private life and revealing information about myself that I naively believed we were all going to keep confidential together as, disciples of the theater. But I'm pretty sure I was maneuvered into that studio because their technique involves a lot more talking out of your personal and private life. And so it would have given perhaps people incentivized to be in classes or teaching classes and watching me for, intelligence purposes to glean information about me. So yeah, here's the thing. If you're too smart and you figure out stuff is happening to you that you're not supposed to figure out, people aren't going to be happy with you. And I think that's probably what's happening right now. I'm sure Tisch School of the Arts and anybody who was involved in this is surely trying to disown me and make me look crazy or troubled. And the church is just documented as doing stuff like this. And colleges are also known for being infiltrated by intelligence agencies from all parts of the world. So, this is not abnormal. And I'm really just going on a selfish desire to revive my career, and I'm not looking for attention for this. I don't want a multi-interest black ops to keep destroying my career opportunities, and I think that's what's been happening for a while. And I don't like that, and there's nothing I can really do but call it out and try to look as graceful as possible in the process of doing so, which is difficult because it's extremely maddening. And the other thing is, if the Cargman and the Brooks family don't, they have a lot of credibility in creative, artistic circles. They could be, trying to bribe the ex-Scientologist community with donations and stuff like that and career opportunities. And so, I've got multiple interests. It's not just the church, and I can find refuge in the Scientology critic community. It's multiple opposing interests that would not be affiliated with each other were it not that they all have a motive to, shut me down. And this is not my MO. I never sought out persecutory narratives for myself. I just wanted to get some jobs as an actor and as a writer. And do good work and be a good, that's pretty much, I've never I've never, other than like the occasional follies of youth, I'm not a bad person. I've not really shown like tendencies of a bad person. I just seem to be like an unfortunate casualty in this stuff, and I really don't. I'm very pissed off about it, and it's not okay. And I just, yeah, there you go. Also, my book is, I think it would probably be very marketable and have a lot of readers. So if there's anybody else with a selfish motive to like sign a book that could probably sell like pretty well, that, you know, that selfish motive isn't so selfish, because individualism is sometimes a selfless act when you're in the midst of like people being overly anti-individualist. You can be an example for people who are scared of their own individualism in the face of a more totalitarian construct. Like sometimes it's, you know, the selfish asshole who inspires you to be just a normal level of selfishness that counteracts the overbearing, toxic communalism that might be making you feel like you're not allowed to just do things in a way that threaten totalitarian leaders just by being creatively individual. So, yeah. So, yeah, I don't know. I didn't really plan this. But it's a story. It happened. Please, if it's your job or hobby to go and track down how that weird scenario happened to me in the subway in 2007 and 2008, please investigate it. Like, find out who those cops were, how it was set up. Like, I'm sure if they had set it up hoping I would wander through the door, there was a chance I wouldn't. So it's like, they must have been trying, you know, like somebody sets a mouse trap. I'm the mouse, and they're probably setting traps all the time, and I don't necessarily run into all of them, but I run into enough of them. And it's like my energy is exhausted trying to dodge so many of them. So like, imagine how this is messing my life up. Like, oh man, it would be great if I could just sue as many people as possible that like were involved in this, and like get money, you know. That would be great. I would love that. I mean, that money would be so useful. It would be a comfort, you know. I could have it and know that like certain parts of my future were just going to have some relief from the black ops and the harassment, and like maybe a lawyer could write some letters to, you know, people who may or may not be targeting me with a multi-interest black ops, and they could say in those letters, "Dear so-and-so, our client believes you may or may not be targeting them with a multi-interest black ops. If you are, you must cease and desist all multi-interest black ops activity, including surveillance, stalking, hired surveillance, volunteer surveillance, professional surveillance, amateur surveillance, and any use of information acquired therein to manipulate or influence our client and or anyone affiliated with our client by any degree, you know, or, you know, we will sue you. Or even better, our client has extensive anecdotal evidence that is backed up by investigation proving that she has been the target of a multi-interest black ops for years and has suffered incalculable emotional, psychological, and monetary damage due to these activities. We're going to sue you for $10 million, whatever. There's a research study saying money does not really make you happy. Really, it's like, the study was like about 70 grand a year is the sweet spot. And if you start making more than that, the money actually becomes a source of stress and it becomes its own job to maintain. And that's probably true. So I think I would want to be really, really, really exact and disciplined with just making sure that I only have a very minimal amount of money to maintain a lifestyle where I know I have food, clothing, a home, an unlimited Metro card, and make sure I'm not eating out of the garbage in my old age. And then, then the rest I would have to figure out what to do with that, so that I'm not basically screwing up my life by having too much money and being able to indulge excesses I never knew existed until I had an excess of financial resources. So, lottery winner syndrome. So yeah, that's pretty much what I would do. I would basically, but it would be great to just sue, like the Cardmans for stalking me at Williamstown and then stalking me to Joseph Brooks's house and weird stuff like that. And then, and some professors and students who basically tried to sabotage me being able to graduate from Tisch with an agent and then leverage certain other students to get an agent, stuff like that. I don't want to sue people who don't have money. That's just so awful and sad. Like, no, I could sue people who had a lot of money and probably were the ones, like, making those poor people do shit for them. Yeah. No, I'm not gonna sue, like poor artists, like myself. Like, that's just fucking... That would just be, like, sending them into the criminal system and perpetuating, like, the stuff that prison activists are trying to reform. Really what I would love to do is just get the key people with money who are funding this shit and then be like, listen, you were hiring Black Ops investigators who were probably getting paid shitloads of money a week, to do this to me. You should pay me the rate they were getting for every single week that this has been happening to me, which is probably a lot of money. It's like, if you're going to pay someone to target me with a Black Ops, you better pay me too. The same rate that they were getting, at least. And probably, I would say, plus interest and adjusted for inflation. So that's fair. I'm not going to be like, oh, let's make the poor guy who was working as a mover in the summer of 2018 who got incentive to sabotage my move so that I would be thrown into economic turmoil and trauma and, be afraid that I was, going to be homeless. Like, that stuff, that guy is a fucking asshole, but he probably has no money to pay me if I sued him. And, I would just look like a jerk, and he would probably just descend into further just petty crime, if not just full jail, and it would not help anybody. He's like, we don't know why he did what he did. Maybe he's just an asshole who did it for like $100. Maybe he was getting blackmailed and protecting like his family who was in extreme danger. We don't know. Most likely he was just an asshole doing it for $100, but fuck him. I'm not going to sue him. What's the point? I just want to sue some people who probably have a lot of money and probably owe it to me and can pay me. And that would be great. And I think I would be enough of a financial steward to, make use of that money without fucking up my life at this point. But it would be a chore, I would have to meet with like financial advisors and lawyers and accountants, and I would have to pay some taxes, and I would have to learn a whole bunch of financial stuff that I don't know. And it would be like a part-time job. But it would not be, it's not my passion. It's not my forte. But I think like, and it's not gonna buy me back like all those years of sabotage. What I really need is, but like, having that stability, and then, then a literary agent. I'm really just trying to get, a literary agent would know that I probably have the funds to protect myself against inevitable lawsuits, by people who have to be called out because they are targeting me with a multi-interest black ops who I initially tried to change their name in the book, but you outed yourself, so I don't know what to tell you. But the thing is, like, if people are going to sue me because of the book, I should put my assets in, after I've made all this money from suing people who targeted me with multi-interest black ops, I would have to put my assets in, like, my mother's name or something. Some people do that so that when they get sued because of some book they wrote, they're like, oh, don't have any money. But the thing is, if anybody sued me for the book that I wrote, they wouldn't win. Their suit would be dismissed because nothing in my book is made up. They would just be trying to fuck with me or punish me. The church is known for doing that, just suing people to try to tie up their time and resources. So I don't know. Yeah, the Cargmans are friends with like Elizabeth Moss, and they're like big American Ballet Theater donors, among other things. So I just, I don't know. They're probably talking with her right now, being like, look at this person. Look at her. She's degraded. She's trying to publish a book. It's terrible. Like, I don't know what their plans are, what their plots, their special plots that they're doing are. But most likely the Cargmans and the Brookses are getting a lot of free black ops stuff happening against me just by the church, because the church, apparently they pay like $1 million a week sometimes on the black ops services that they hire against all of the people they're spying on. So, yeah. So anyway, let's say I sue the Cargmans, I sue the Brookses, I sue Scientology, I sue Tisch School of the Arts. Let's say then I win all this money because, yes, you did this stuff to me. And then I have all this money and I'm like, trying to be normal, make sure I don't go like full Grey Gardens or like full Edie Sedgwick and like drink myself to death because now I have all this money. I'm like, oh my God, look what they did to me. And then I just drink myself to death or something. That could happen. I'm going to make sure. I feel like I've thought all that through, and I know I'm going to basically protect myself from the money and like put it in funds and whatever, donate it, get a financial advisor who's not going to trick me, and basically say, listen, do stuff so that the money doesn't hurt me, and that, you know, we make sure this and this and this happens, like I can use it for good causes and things like that, but not get delusional and not go around town thinking that because I have all this money, I can like force people to like cast me in roles and like publish my book. My book is like already legit, like it just needs an agent and to not get blackballed. And like, you know, I don't want the money to make me delusional and think that like I suddenly don't have to do the work of like being like good at in the arts. I want enough money so that I don't have to get distracted by the multi-interest black ops, so I can actually be good. And that's what I want. And I think that's hard. So I would need basically a couple, like an accountant, to just protect me from the excess of having all that money. But then it's like, so I have all that money, I've stuck it in trust funds and whatever. And then let's say I publish my book, and then of course the Cargmans and the Brookses, they try to sue me. Scientology tries to sue me. And then they're like, oh, well, you have all this money now, so give it back. So that's why I think I would have to figure out how to make sure I have no money in my name. And I don't know if like I would have to do like an LLC, but even then, like that can't totally protect you from a lawsuit when it's about a book. If I put all my assets in my mother's name, like she's just, we can't collaborate. We can hardly collaborate, and like she might just like go crazy, and then I might not be able to get it back, and I don't know. I would just, I mean, I guess I would need a lawyer and an accountant. So yeah, I think if I had a lot of money from anything, I don't know what I would need. I don't know what I would need to do to make sure I don't just get sued into the ground or swindled. I would need to hire like an accountant who's not going to trick me or steal from me, and who's just going to basically protect me from the money and financially protect me from myself. But not in a sort of controlling evil way, just in a like, oh yeah, we've seen this personality before, it's very common in the arts, like you get a nominal income per year that allows you to maximize your arts activity, and then the rest, this is so you're not eating out of the garbage in your old age, and then the some can go to your family and like here's donations and stuff like that. That would be, I think, the ideal situation. So yeah. Yeah, I mean, can you imagine just like, I mean, the Church of Scientology already got raided that one time, and the FBI found all these files on the people they were harassing and all the stuff they did to them. It was like the lives of others. And like, you know, this time they probably know to hide their files. Like they could just be no files. They just burn them, or they're written in code or something, or they're buried deep within the San Jacinto Mountains. They certainly probably learned from the last time, and they got better, I'm sure. So I could just be so screwed. The church is going to become like a massive global religion. And, you know, if I'm lucky, I'll be mentioned once or twice as like one of the early Scientology critics, and not even one of the main ones, like, because I'm clearly not, you know, doing a blog every morning. Like, I'm just trying, and like, again, I'm multi-interest black ops, so I'm too complicated to be like a pure Scientology critic or defector. I'm also getting targeted by the Cargmans and the Brooks family, and they could be donating to like the Aftermath Foundation. You don't know. Who knows? Anyway, what a shit show. I just want some jobs as an actor and I want to publish my book. Like, it's not that big of a deal. It's not that far of a stretch. Like, I've sacrificed pretty much everything for my art. Any kind of emotional, psychological, spiritual fulfillment on the Maslow's hierarchy of need, like, that's no longer a possibility for me because I've sacrificed it for my art. Like, for the laugh, I've done some pretty extreme things. I didn't know I was going to get targeted by a multi-interest Black Ops, but even after finding out that I was, I'm like, okay, I still want to publish this book. So, I don't know. I think that shows I'm pretty committed. I think my book is actually, like, people like the book. I think a lot of people would like the book. And it's also got literary staying power. It's not just short-term entertainment. It's not just riding on the fumes of, like, this, you know, B-list celebrity rapist, like, sorry, rape suspect. Like, you know, I think, you know, that if it weren't for this multi-interest Black Ops, there would be really nothing standing in the way of my success. And, you know, I don't think helping me a little bit, you know, would be so much to ask. You know, given the fact that there are people who plot for me to leave jury duty in the hopes that I wander into the subway so that they can fine me for fare evasion for the exact same amount I made off jury duty in the summer when that was all the money I was gonna get that week. Okay. So I think that same summer, like, I got one of those letters from, like, that Nigerian prince, one of the Nigerian princes, who was like, oh, but they were like, oh, we're gonna send you some parts, electronics, to your house, and we're gonna pay you, like, $900 a week to just, like, package them and ship them to us. Here's the first $900 check. So that happened, I think that happened shortly after, and I got the $900 check. I was like, oh my God, I've never had this much money in my life. And I went to the bank, and I was like, here's my $900 check. And they're like, oh, this isn't real. And they're like, oh, if you put this in your account, like, you will never be allowed to have a bank account again. And I was like, oh, okay, well, that's too bad. I was really disappointed. But I think, like, I don't know if it was the FBI or the church, but I think they were trying to get me to see how far they could get me to descend into like, you know, criminality, and they really couldn't. Like, I wouldn't. I just was too much of, I was pretty much, like, had full faith that the minute I did a single thing, I would get caught. And I didn't want to do anything particularly illegal. I just also, you know, it's just never been something I've, you know, I just want to get, you know, some acting jobs, maybe a writing job. Maybe I don't want to do any acting jobs. Maybe like I've been too, maybe I've had the wall of illusion shattered for me one too many times, that I'm just like, no, I don't want to act. I prefer to write, because then I can stay home and don't have to deal with people following me and trying to stage weird interactions with me. Though, that would be sad. That would be a sad reason to give up acting. But the other thing is, it's very hard to write and act at this, to do both those things and do them as well as you possibly can. Like, if you do both those things, you can maybe make a lot of money. You can maybe have a lot of success. You can maybe be very organized and, be good to work with. But the people who like really, really, really do both those things in a way that's great, they're usually comedians. Yeah, they're usually comedians. Uh, which I guess I'm literally living in a conceptual comedy crafted for me by a multi-interest Black Ops. So I don't know. I would prefer to like only act or only write. And right now, I'm having to make this video because I'm being targeted by multi-interest Black Ops, trying to prevent me from having any kind of professional opportunity in either of those sectors. When I went to school for acting, I always had this sense of like, I just don't feel good not writing. I always felt time not spent writing was time squandered. But maybe like my rarely ever having a sense of peace over these many years is because I was being targeted by just like onslaughts of multi-interest Black Op tactics and psychological manipulation. If I've never really been able to exist in a true resting state, then I can't really assess myself outside of those terms. Well, it's late, and I feel I've expressed myself, and hopefully not overexpressed myself, but hopefully this has been educational, and hopefully this will inspire others to engage in an unproductive revisitation of memories that are probably too long ago to accurately revisit, and then form conspiracy theories about their multi-interest Black Ops as well.